Will you quit, quit, quit? You stupid, evil machine. I can't even cuss now I'm on the air. You evil, evil computer. Come on. Will you freaking. I hate this computer. I hate this internet connection. Come on. Oh, now you do this. I am sick and tired of this. I'll just start talking. I can't get the link posted on Facebook because having YouTube and Facebook open at the same time is apparently not allowed by Verizon Wireless Internet. Here's the rogue networks and secret sorcery. Let's boost my volume. That might help. Now, you evil, evil, evil computer, evil, evil computer, evil Facebook. Let me post the actual link. All right, see, Dr. Joseph P. Farrell, what do you call it? An Oxford scholar. He got his doctorate in patristics at Oxford University, and yes, I'm jealous. Come on, Facebook, let me edit the link I posted because that link is no good. No, 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 you evil freaking computer. I don't care anymore. People on Facebook might be deprived because Facebook won't let me load links. And I really want to cuss. All right. Hidden finance, rogue networks, and secret sorcery. And the subtitle is The Fascist International 9/11 and Penetrated Operations. Um, I've read the preface and précis, which is sort of like a very brief summary. It focuses here on the operation that we call 9/11. Okay, and I have this book thanks to a generous Facebook friend, Sherry, who sent it to me as a gift. It's really amazing for both footnotes and appendices, a bibliography primarily. What I want to get down to by skipping ahead is the esoteric enigma, the idea of Masonic symbolism. But first, now he does mention the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy as basically the first conspiracy that he encountered in his life. Now, Farrell is 2 or 3 years younger than I am. I was 9 years old in 1963. I was at school. We had just been let out of the cafeteria to go to the nice long lunch recess that allowed us plenty of time to play and get all that extra energy out of our systems. When the lady in the office came on the PA, the public announcement system, and told us to go back to our classrooms. We were upset. We didn't like losing our playtime. But when I got back to Mrs. Oi, Novak's, I'm losing my memory. Oh dear, Mrs. Novak's fourth grade class, where I was one of the students, a hall monitor named Craig rolled a cart into the room, and on that cart was a big colored television set. And on that TV, we watched the replays of the assassination of JFK, President Kennedy. And the people in the office called our parents and sent us home when our parents said it was okay to do so. I walked home, it was less than a block from Culver Elementary to Lafayette Avenue. It was across the end of a block, so just a few houses distance. I walked in the door and Mom shouted with glee, "Somebody got the S head," and she didn't say S. And she went on for days about somebody finally got the Fink. Well, I thought Kennedy was a communist too, but I didn't find joy in having his head blown off. Anyway, we all knew even then that there was no way any lone gunman pulled off that feat. The news showed it over and over. I understand that in some cities nobody aired the actual shooting, but in Los Angeles they did. It was horrible, and we were glued to the television set, and we knew that there had to be a conspiracy. So 9/11, 2001, 38 years later. Well, on September 10, none of us had any idea, but I must have known something because for the first time in 2 years, I turned off both the television and the radio before I went to bed. I just had this feeling that I did not want any bad news to creep into my dreams and disturb my sleep. I was in the habit of listening to Art Bell all night and keeping the television on for a nightlight without the sound, but I turned them both off and just had the bathroom light for a nightlight and slept soundly until the phone rang around 9 in the morning. So this would have been after the planes had crashed into the Twin Towers, and my son called. I was really upset that the phone rang when I was still asleep, but I answered it, and it was my son saying, "Did you see the news?" And he went on to tell me that an airplanes had crashed into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. And I thought he must be watching a movie. It couldn't be real. But he insisted, so I turned on the television, and sure enough, it was real. And I don't believe that 20 Islamic Arab terrorists pulled that off all by themselves. Now, flying an airplane might be pretty easy if it's on autopilot, but aiming it at a specific building in a specific city, that isn't so easy, especially at the Pentagon because it's such a small building. It isn't tall like the Twin Towers. I don't know exactly what happened or who did it, but I do know that somebody was controlling those hijackers. Definitely controlling them. Don't know who it was. And when the towers came down, now you don't hear this anymore, but there was a story that a group of French art students had rented an entire floor of Building 2 at the World Trade Center and had been there for some months. Can't remember for sure. I think it was the fourth floor. Might have been the sixth, but I think it was the fourth. Now, even assuming that they were French art students, how could they afford to rent an entire floor in one of the most expensive buildings in the country? And what were they doing for all those months? Creating oil paintings and sculptures? Who knows? Having parties, or maybe planting explosives. But the way those buildings crumbled, as Joseph Farrell points out in his book, show you the book again, Hidden Finance, Rogue Networks, and Secret Sorcery by Dr. Joseph P. Farrell. Uh, well, even if explosives had been planted in both buildings in order to bring them down, it's still awfully strange that the concrete was pulverized and the steel girders were melted. After the horrible fires in Northern California last year, I'm willing to accept that a continually burning fire could get hot enough to soften the girders so that they might bend, but puddles of melted steel in the basement where there used to be a skyscraper, and there wasn't enough debris. Even when you consider that pulverized concrete and office supplies blew out and covered cars and people for blocks, I think about 2 blocks, there still isn't enough rubble. And another thing they don't tell you is that under one of the towers, there's a subway line, and an entire subway train was under one of the buildings and full of dead people. I'm so glad that I'm not a first responder. It must have been a horrible day. Oh, and thank you, Kev T. Let's see if I can type and talk at the same time. I'm not good at that. There, here we go. And All right. My sin of the day, potato chips for breakfast. Let's see. On page 244, Farrell gives us a picture of the Masonic pillars. He calls them Jachin and Boaz, but I learned them as Joachim, Joachim, and Boaz. Those, by the way, are also the pillars in front of the temple in Jerusalem that Solomon built. But Solomon didn't put the earth and the solar system or whatever that is on top of the pillars. And Solomon, of course, did not have the compass and square with a big G in the middle. Well, who knows? But this gets down to the esoteric stuff and begins with a quote from Peter Levenda. By choosing to see 9/11 as a ritual on a massive scale, we paradoxically may better be able to understand it, to accommodate its message on a psychological, even spiritual level. And that's from Peter Levenda's book. Well, I guess it's a story or an essay titled Knock Knock, Knock, Knock Knock. In S.K. Bain's book, The Most Dangerous Book in the World, 9/11 as a Mass Ritual. Love the footnotes, love the bibliography, but they make it even more cumbersome when I'm just wanting to read. And happy St. Patrick's Day. I don't suppose we have anything green. I'll just do a smile in the chat room. The Esoteric Enigma, Chapter 9, the final chapter, by the way. I'm skipping down to it was, if the argument of preceding chapters has been followed, that is, the earlier chapters in Farrell's book, the ultimate alchemical wedding of magic and technology. Technology in the form of exotic means of destruction of the Twin Towers, and perhaps also in the form of a software program that allowed and helped coordinate and plan the ritual aspects of the event. Why was it a ritual? Well, according to Farrell, the Twin Towers sort of represent the two pillars in front of a Masonic temple, Joachim and Boaz. And he goes into Kabbalah, which of course is a very old Jewish system in which numbers have meaning. For us, of course, 9/11 is 911 that we call in emergencies. In England, it would be 999, and I can't think of a date that would work for ritual meaning. Now he goes into Bain's thesis in The Most Dangerous Book and the idea that 9/11 was an occult script, a magical operation. And then he goes into the symbolism of the numerology. Why Flight 77? Why attack on the Pentagon, a five-sided building with five rings? And with I'm skipping. Within esoteric and occult practice, the pentagon itself is a symbol of protection and hence an appropriate symbol for a military headquarters building. Damaging such a symbol of protection is also attractive to practitioners of the dark arts. I don't see a picture here, but when doing rituals, magicians often draw a pentacle or pentagram, a five-pointed star on the floor, and then surround that pentagram with a circle. And they stay inside that circle, inside the pentagram, for protection. That's interesting. Now there I've heard about building 7 coming down on 9/11, but I'm sure that I heard on the news that day that building 5, not 7, 5, was a CIA repository where they kept sensitive records, and that the CIA was deliberately bringing that building down with explosives that had been planted there as a precaution when the building was built, constructed even. Fives and sevens seem to play a large role in the 911. Shall I call it a tragedy? A terrorist attack? Now let's go to page 55 about the Pentagon, also a number 5. One witness driving in his car close to the Pentagon described it as being more like a cruise missile with wings, while Lon Raines, an editor for Space News, stated, I was convinced it was a missile. It came in so fast it sounded nothing like an airplane. Some eyewitnesses, while describing an aircraft, also described the strike against the building itself in unusual terms, as melting into the building or sort of disappearing, or in the air one moment and in the building the next. But the most significant witness, who insisted she did not see an airplane and insisted, oh, someone's at the door. Ay, ay, ay. I'll be back. You're talking to animals. I'm on Facebook or YouTube live. Sure, why not? Yeah, and she's done it again, and I haven't seen her since she did it. Oh, okay. Well, sorry. I've told her too. Yeah, besides, my yard is an obstacle course. Oh, Blackie, I gotta shut the door. Oh, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, yeah, you're cute. Now hush. Bad cat. Sorry about that. It was turned out to be important. Lioness stuff. I'm in Crestline Lioness, and their storage shed is on in my driveway, and some inconsiderate person has blocked the pathway with stuff. I'll have to talk to her. Well, anyway, The witness who did not see an airplane and insisted to the point of suing the federal government was April Gallup. Gallup worked inside the Pentagon, so she's the lady who escaped. She said, let's see, quote, I thought it was a bomb, end quote, Gallup recalled. Quote, I was buried in rubble and my first thought was for my son. I crawled around until I found his stroller. It was all crumpled up into a ball and I was then very afraid. But then I heard his voice and managed to locate him. We crawled out through a hole in the side of the building. Outside, they were treating survivors on the grassy lawn, but all the ambulances had left. So a man who was near the scene stepped up, put us in his private car, and drove us to the hospital. The images are burned into my brain. End quote. And folks, I'm a recovering English teacher, but really there's no such thing as an unquote. That just means you are not quoting anyone. It's end quote, as in end of the quotation. Anyway, these agents who didn't identify themselves or even say which agency they worked for tried to pound into April Gallup's brain that it was an airplane. Of course, back to the book, of course, since she was inside the Pentagon, Gallup may or may not have seen an approaching airplane. The important thing is what she did not see: airplane debris. And the lawsuit uh, that she joined was dismissed by the court. Hmm. And the judge just happened to be a first cousin of President Bush's father, former President George H.W. Bush. Now, I've seen YouTube videos where supporters of the airplane theory show pictures of debris and they say, here it is. Well, maybe. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem likely that an airplane could fly low enough to hit the Pentagon. In fact, if I were planning such an operation, I would have it do a nosedive on top of the Pentagon, not go screaming in at ground level. There's no way. The speed that has been described would lift the jet up and over the building. It couldn't. Jets have to slow down to drop down. That's because they have wings. A missile, on the other hand, even if it had some wings, would not have wings like an airplane because missiles are designed to go low to the ground when necessary. Just a thought. Something is rotten. I don't know who did it or how, but I do know that it was ridiculous to go after Iraq and Afghanistan for 9/11. Um, and I don't believe we went after Iraq for their oil. The Iraqi oil is so dirty that it cannot meet our air quality standards. We can't use it. Other countries who are not as strict about air quality can use Iraqi oil, but we can't refine it well enough to use it in the United States. Afghanistan, I suppose, um, the attack on Afghanistan was to preserve our access to opium so we can keep poor working class people addicted to illegal drugs and fund the CIA and who knows who else with the profits, while essentially killing off an entire generation, primarily of young men, but also women of childbearing age. You don't see a whole lot of senior citizens starting to take drugs. I mean, they might already be on them, but unless they have some really painful injury or illness that they can't get pain relief for, I don't see heroin or even speed as attractive. Hang on a second. Can't breathe potato chips, it doesn't work. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little sneak preview. I will, sorry, I will talk more about Farrell's book when I've read more of it. I do know that 9/11 changed our entire culture. I don't think it was really a move toward gun control because guns were not used, but it did open up the door to the surveillance state. 2 years ago, I had my first experience with TSA at the airport. It was only the second time I had flown since Reagan fired the aircraft controllers. I'm not really against flying per se, but I am against being crammed into a small metal tube filled with sweaty strangers. Um, wow. I'm looking at the chat room. I'm glad you're enjoying this video. Well, anyway, at Ontario Airport in California, they just gave me the simple check, walk through the metal detector and stuff like that. And they x-rayed my bags and my purse. But coming back home from Denver, I got the full treatment. I had to throw out my lemonade, take off my shoes, put everything, empty the contents of my purse and carry on into these plastic bins or tubs and sort them by what kind of stuff they were. It was the full treatment. And walk through a metal detector after I put everything in plastic tubs so they could look at them. It really wasn't fun. And then, of course, our flight home was delayed. My friend Brenda paid for my airline tickets with her miles. Otherwise, I could not have gone. Anyway, it really irked me that the flight was delayed by 2 hours, but I didn't dare leave that area because I'd have to go through TSA again. And the shops inside after going through security, didn't have lemonade, which was what I was craving. I got a fruit smoothie, but it just wasn't the same. And of course, we have these red light cameras. Most of them are gone now in my area. But the most ridiculous one is, in California, you can make a right turn on a red light if it's safe. You have to stop first. But the statute doesn't say how long you have to stop. It just says you stop, and when it's safe, you can make your right turn on a red light. Well, these cameras were giving tickets to people because they failed to remain at a stop for 15 seconds. That is not the law. The law is when it's safe. And then when you went to court, they wouldn't let you talk to a judge. They'd just show you the footage and say, pay up. Ridiculous. They were breaking the law. And most of the money, by the way, went to the private company that made and installed the cameras. It didn't even go to our courts or our road repair services. No, didn't go to law enforcement either. Most of it went to private companies lining their pockets with bogus tickets that you couldn't fight. Anyway, that's about it for now. It's just that I'm really upset at all the new laws. They don't necessarily affect me personally, except for the real ID, because California's Department of Motor Vehicles can't get their act together. They finally just recently started issuing real ID, only the people who stood in line for hours to get that real ID were cheated because their version of real ID does not meet the specifications that the federal government laid out. So, and I'm going to have to do something so I can fly to Denver this August so I can attend the Philip K. Dick Festival. Well, I think the only option for me is to get a passport because it will meet the requirements for sure. And there's no line to speak of at our post office. It's just going to cost me a couple $100, but I have to be able to get on an airplane. Um, oh, the chat. Well, I've been watching Dark Journalist on YouTube and Richard Dolan. I like Dolan's focus on evidence. Oh, and I listened to Dr. Michael Heiser talking about the Bible. He's a scholar of ancient languages and he explains where translations are good and where they are not so good, and really makes you think, which is why I generally focus on the Bible in my podcast, Ancient of Days. Although this evening I will be talking about Joseph Farrell's book, um, the one I'm talking about here and now. Let's show you the picture again. And hidden finance, rogue networks, and secret sorcery. Um, it comes on at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern at freedomizerradio.com. Let me see. There, I got it into the chat room. It looks like it isn't, it's grayed out, so I guess I'm not allowed to post links. Let's do this. Make sure you have both R's in there, freedom, but no space. So do it like this, Freedomizer Radio. That's freedom, I-Z-E-R, radio.com. There's a live chat room there. And as I said, I usually do Bible study. Last week I talked about David and Goliath in the book of First Samuel. But tonight I will be talking about uh, hidden finance, rogue networks, and secret sorcery. The Fascist International 9/11 and Penetrated Operations by Dr. Joseph P. Farrell. I criticize other YouTubers for not keeping the picture up long enough to read the words, so here you go. And on the back it says, pursuing his investigations of high financial fraud, international banking, hidden systems of finance, black budgets, and breakaway civilizations, author and researcher Joseph P. Farrell investigates the theory that there were not two levels to the 9/11 event, but three. And Joseph P. Farrell. Okay, I think that's enough for now because the cats are telling me it's lunchtime, and that means they they get the lion's share of my sliced turkey, and I get whatever's left on a sandwich. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be back. Let's see. I forget how to turn this off. Oh, end stream looks like a good choice. Thanks again.